Welcome to the Backyard Professor live videos. Live show, I should say. It'll be a video after I'm done with this live session. I want to say welcome to all my new subscribers and new people who are joining my channel daily now. It's really nice to see so much new faces, fresh blood, fabulous ideas. Keep them coming. I'm trying to share all things UAP, UFO in the news, as well as philosophical analysis, spiritual analysis, crazy real reality analysis, governmental analysis, which really sucks because we know those idiots just lie through their teeth. And I've got some interesting evidence for that tonight. Most interesting of all, in fact. I have been listening to the YouTube channel on Danny Jones today, and I listened to the Chris Bledsoe story, 3.5 hours of some of the most magnificent viewing and listening I've ever heard. Fabulous story. Chris Bledsoe is the most vetted experiencer of UFOs anywhere on the planet, for real. He wrote The UFO of God, and I will be reading this book next. I've been trying to do a little reading. I've been doing a lot of YouTubing. And I want to say hi to everybody real quick. Tim Rathbone, good to see you. Hey, Flat Pat. And my country carpenter, good job, good job. Good to see y'all. This particular interview by one of the truly great men in our UFO community is Ross Coulthart. The man is stellar. He is really good. He holds the highest of standards for excellent journalism, for superb questioning, etc. He started a new YouTube show about 7-8 months ago called, I can't remember, Reality Check. Now, he does News Nation. He's out of Australia. Phenomenal material from him. He interviews Danny Sheehan, the public lawyer for the, I say public lawyer for the United States. He's at least helping with public issues in the United States, but he is a very, very well-known lawyer. And this particular interview just absolutely rocked me on my butt. I was very pleasantly surprised at its power, and I really enjoyed it. Hey, Verta Bremen, good to see you, my friend. Scott Dunstan, good to see you. Joy Kirshenman. I don't have my glasses on, so hopefully I won't misread things too bad. Sorry if I do. Hey, from Australia, Scott Dunstan, welcome from the land down under. Yeah, Steve Wallbanger, good to see you. So we're all getting here. This interview, I'm really excited to get to. Let's get right to it, actually. You don't have to listen to me sit here and blather. We want to listen to what Coulthart says. Now, if any of you have watched Danny Sheehan, please do, because the man is a walking encyclopedia. The downside of Sheehan is not his knowledge and information. It is his, he is so well connected that he just starts throwing out all of these people's names and their positions in life and all that. And it takes him 299 minutes to get through the list before he'll make a point. He doesn't do that tonight. In this interview, he's just straight on. And I love how Ross Coulthart just keeps him on here. So let's take a look and see. Hey, Adam Weiss, good to see you. Oh, Defense by Design. No, don't forget the live broadcast. Good to see you, my friend. I will get a hold of you soon. Snack Kennedy, good to see you. Nathan from the Quantum Show. All right. Roland Gibbs, good to see you. Peter Higgs, another one from down under. Woohoo! You Aussies, you rock. Okay, so let me share this screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be sharing the majority of this interview between Coulthart and Sheehan. I'm going to intersperse my comments. There are some who don't like that style. I apologize in advance. I have to do that for copyright purposes. You can see, a lot of you have probably seen this interview, but I want to intersperse my comments, my reactions, my responses to this based on what I understand. So tonight ought to be a really, really good night. And let's see, I'm going to do the Joe Rogan Experience. Hey, if you haven't seen the interview with Joe Rogan and Michael Schellenberger, you really need to. That's background for what we're going to be talking about tonight, actually. But this is the one I want to share. Let me make sure we are on the go. We are. There is the man in the flesh on the screen anyway. Ross Coulthart, man to always follow. Hey, Debbie Donovan, good to see you. Jenny Micko, good to see you. Ross, when is this interview from? This is his very first interview 7 months ago on his very first show, Reality Check. And Coulthart starts it with the best of the best, Danny Sheehan. So let's see. You don't want to see my ugly mug. You want to see his. Or I mean, no, we want to hear what Coulthart says. Listen to this opening. I have never heard Coulthart so blunt. Get this. This is fabulous.
And by golly, what a week it has been to kick off a new show like this. Of all the ridiculous piles of steaming dog turd I've ever seen served up before the US Congress as a report that supposedly tells the truth about what's really going on inside the national security world, the Arrow Historical Review of UAPs was a big pile of steaming BS.
I mean, go Coulthart. Have you ever heard him tell it like it is than that? This is superb. He backhands Arrow because, of course, they're still lying to us. I mean, that is so spectacular. That's worth replaying almost again. I won't, but man, I'm telling you. Oh, hey, Ned, welcome. Appreciate your new sub. Yeah, hit the like, subscribe, and share this video with everybody. So Coulthart here, he gives a front end load. Now, what I want to share here with you is really important for we Americans, because Coulthart is defending our Constitution. And we Americans, everyone in the world, as far as I'm concerned, but we Americans especially, we need to get this attitude about our wonderful freedoms in life in America. Coulthart is really superb here. I can't help but like this a lot. Let's keep going.
I don't know whether I'm allowed to get away with that kind of language on News Nation, but we'll give it a go and see if they get this through the edit. I care passionately about the laws of your beautiful country. I live in Australia and I'm a trained lawyer by profession, but I work as a journalist, an investigative journalist. I've done long form investigative journalism for much of the last 35 to 40 years. I'm a completely failed lawyer. I could never keep my mouth shut and I could never stop digging into the files that I found very interesting in the stories that I worked on. And I care about one thing in your country that is beautiful, the US Constitution. I'm jealously protective of the rights and freedoms that are gifted by that Constitution so expressly.
So I will say I am humbled. I am very, very grateful to the man in his position of power, of freedom of speech, and of exquisite journalism, can look into all these types of things, but he cares about our freedoms. We Americans, and as well as all the rest of the world, need to maintain those freedoms. Without free speech, none of you would be watching my podcast tonight if I wasn't free to say what I want, share the information that I've heard, read and proclaim books that I love and believe are valuable. The freedom of speech, the press is never the enemy except to dictators. When people in leadership begin speaking against the press and free speech, we all need to perk up and fight back. That's the only politics I'm going to bring into this because, well, not really, but Coulthart really kicks it in here. But I love this introduction. I am proud of Ross Coulthart. I will follow suit and lead the way with him of saying, let's go, baby. We've got good stuff to share because of our freedoms. Let's enjoy them tonight. We are enjoying them. Let's hear you, Ross.
In your laws. And the reason I care about the UAP issue more than most is because at the heart of the unidentified anomalous phenomena mystery is the question as to whether or not the United States government is misleading the American public and indeed the rest of the world on the truth of what's really going on. As you know, in June last year, I did an exclusive story for News Nation revealing the account of David Grush, a former senior, very senior intelligence officer with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and the National Reconnaissance Organization. And he revealed to me exclusively on television the shocking revelation that we are not alone. For the first time, an intelligence insider revealed the existence of a non-human intelligence engaging with this planet. He also acknowledged that it was true that the United States government has been involved in what are referred to euphemistically as crash retrievals, and that there is a retrieval program ongoing of non-human technology.
This is really important. It's what my earlier video of today talked about. I posted an earlier video today, and I discussed the issue with what's his nose, the dingaling that nobody believes anymore because he's not believable. Sean Kirkpatrick, yeah, him. I did a video earlier today on him and this problem of the immaculate constipation. The Immaculate Constellation program, which is now out. Now, of course, we're all hoping November 13th can bring more light and knowledge with the hearings. We have to be cautiously optimistic. We have to be realistic, but we as a UFO community, and isn't it astonishing? We have the technology now. We have the capability of being worldwide. We can join together as men and women with common goals, common desires, common needs, common hopes, and gaining common knowledge. We have tremendous power and ability. That is what I want to get across in my videos of information on all aspects of the UAP, the UFOs, etc. So Ross Coulthart is also interviewing some of these magnificent powerhouses that we need to enjoy as well. So this is really fun stuff. Let's keep going with Ross for a few more minutes before he brings on Danny Sheehan.
There's also a reverse engineering program, a program underway inside the US government and private aerospace that is one of the highest kept secrets in the US government. It's a program to attempt to back engineer recovered exotic non-human technology. Now, even before I met David Grush, I knew this was true. The reason I met David Grush was because I heard about him from people inside the legacy program. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, these are good people, patriots. They're not people trying to compromise national security secrets that should continue to be protected. They want the United States and my country, Australia, to continue to flourish as democracies. They love the idea of protecting our democratic freedoms, the constitutional ideas enshrined in your constitution. And what they're appalled about is that there has been an egregious failure that has gone on now for decades inside the national security establishment, which has concealed the existence of a legacy retrieval and reverse engineering program. Now, I know that sounds utterly absurd, and there will be the debunkers and the trolls who suggest that this is all a delusion. But as you'll hear today from a direct first-hand witness to the existence of that retrieval program, there is direct evidence.
Okay, now this is what got me so excited to share this review with you. This is 7 months old. There's a lot of people who've already seen it. There's a lot of us who haven't. I just recently watched it just this week. Here's what is so astonishing to me that I did not grasp. I have watched several of the various interviews with Danny Sheehan, the gentleman he's about to bring on an interview. I did not realize that Sheehan was a direct first-hand witness of the evidence for UFOs. That was amazing. I understood the background with him being a public servant, he was in on the Watergate issue. He helped defend John Mack against what I call the Harvard Inquisition of professors who, when he wrote his book on Abducted, he got in tremendous hot water and pressure at Harvard. And Danny Sheehan came and told Harvard basically, back off or I'm going to behead you. I will legally take you to the cleaners. You can't do this. The Inquisition is medieval thinking. We're in the modern age now. You have to do this legally, etc. He has been fighting for disclosure for the state of weaponry manufacturing to report to Congress. The industrialized, militarized state thinks it's above the law. Well, Sheehan is trying to get it so that with citizens for disclosure that they have to report to Congress and let Congress know what is going on. Our own Congress is more or less in the dark. We have been trying, we've seen that Congress is trying to bring about various different types of hearings, and there are still some die-hard hardheads in Congress who keep stopping it. Our next one, we are hoping, is November 13th. The downside to this, in all reality, is the timing. The election is coming up this next coming week. And we know Congress is going to be absolutely overwhelmed with all kinds of presidential issues, regardless of which candidate wins. That doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican. And so this timing is not good for the UAP disclosure. So some of us are still trying to, give it the old rah-rah-ree, but let's keep it real. We're going to have to keep going. Here's what we need. We need you. Look at you. There's 270 of you here right now in my live. Can't we, as 270 people, spread the word that we want to know more? We want to know better information. We're sick of the repeat information that we keep on getting, says the man who's giving you a repeat interview. But there's so many new people. We have to take into account all of the newcomers because we want as many people involved as we can. And this is why we keep doing this. So let's keep going and see what else Ross Coulthart says or has for us. In fact, I'm gonna speed it up too. I'm gonna bring it up. He's basically said what I wanted to hear him say, and now I want him to get to Danny Sheehan. So let's get up to Danny Sheehan.
Against the American public and the rest of the world. But what we are talking about here is not only a constitutional breach, it's a crime against humanity. It's a flagrant deceit on the human race, and it's time it was exposed. Now, that's enough of a rant from me. Let's just say that Reality Check is going to ask some bloody hard questions, and we're going to hold these people's feet to the fire and make them very, very miserable. And as long as News Nation's prepared to let me do it, I'm going to cause as much mischief as possible. So let's go now to our first guest on Reality Check, attorney Danny Sheehan. So I'd now like to bring on Danny Sheehan, who is one of America's foremost civil rights attorneys, a man I've known for quite some years, and a person who's got a hugely distinguished career in exposing the dark secrets of the American military-industrial complex black world. He was instrumental in helping the Washington Post and other newspapers tell the story of the Pentagon Papers during the Watergate scandal. He was also a very important figure during the Iran-Contra scandal. And more recently, he's been digging into the UAP issue through a new organization called the New Paradigm Institute. Welcome, Danny Sheehan. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Ross. Busy and excited.
Look,
I just want you to recognize that we are about to see a legend in action with Danny Sheehan. I've watched several videos of his, and the knowledge this man has is utterly mind-boggling. Tonight, I actually see him focus on this subject, though, and this is exquisite what he says, so let's keep going.
Welcome to this inaugural episode of Reality Check. It's a pleasure to have you on board our first episode. I want to get straight away, Danny, to a story you've told before, but which I think most Americans are completely unaware of. It's a story I love. I wrote about it in my book. And it's a story of how you were retained by Marcia Smith from the Congressional Research Service to do some work for President Jimmy Carter into the UAP issue. And before we get to the issue of what you were asked to do, just explain to me what you were told by Marcia Smith had happened when President Jimmy Carter asked to be briefed on the UAP mystery.
Now, at this point, I really need to say something, and I'm very, very serious. Everyone in the world needs to be absolutely appalled at what you're about to hear. This is the President of the United States that you're going to hear this experience happen to. And this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. We, as citizens of the world, look, the UAP phenomenon is not just a Brazil thing. It's not just a United States thing or an Australia thing or a UK thing. These things are happening around the world. Richard Dolan, in his excellent weekly podcast just 2 weeks ago, said that he has calculated, based on the information he's received, that there are 50,000 UAP. Now, and this discounts those that have been refuted. These are the genuine anomalies, 50,000 annual, happening around the globe. So this phenomenon appears to be growing. There's a buildup. Something is happening. And our world leaders of the governments need to know. Get a load of what happened to Jimmy Carter. This is unacceptable. We, the people, have to start standing up. Sincerely, this is horrifying. So here we go.
Right. Well, what happened, Ross, is that President Carter was elected like on November 4th of 1976. And right by the 19th of November, even before he'd been sworn in, one of the first things he did is he sent word to have the CIA director come down to Plains, Georgia, to his home and brief him personally at his home about the UFO issue and his potential relationship to any extraterrestrial civilization. It turns out that the CIA director at that time was George H.W. Bush, who was later to become president. But at that time, he had been appointed by the new president, Gerald Ford, who had just taken over from Nixon, having resigned. due to the Watergate burglary scandal. And George H.W. Bush refused to give him the information. George Bush told him that as the elected president, he had no reason to know this information. He said that if, in fact, Carter was willing to keep him on as his CIA director, so that he could become permanently the CIA director, that he might be willing to tell him about this. But President Carter did not. And so what President Carter did is instead he contacted the Congress and said, look, the Congress needs to be involved in this. And he asked the Science and Technology Committee of the House of Representatives to contact the Congressional Research Service and to have them produce two major reports for the president. One on the probabilities and likelihood of there being an extraterrestrial civilization. And secondly, whether it might be responsible for at least some of these sightings of the UFOs. And I was contacted by Marcia Smith, who was the director of the Congressional Research Service, Science and Technology Division, and asked to become special counsel. So
the arrogance is astonishing. Well, you don't need to know. You're only the president of the United States. This has to, somewhere, somehow, this has to change. And guess what this is? This is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Now, I know there's a lot of jaded Americans who say voting doesn't matter. We do have the outdated electoral college. Yeah, I took politics class in college too. I get all that. But we still matter because we have a new angle of communication through social media. We have more power than the government is letting us believe we have. All right. So what we need to do, the key here is keep the pressure on. We can write to our leaders. That is so important. This is what the Citizens for Disclosure is doing in every district, in every state, for every congressman, senator, House representative, etc. We can get information to them of what we, the people, want. So I'm just saying, I know I'm not trying to sound like a broken record, but this is critical. We are tired of being lied to. We are tired of being trampled on. Well, then we do it in the only powerful way there is, through our voices. The pen is mightier than the sword. Just my view. Let's keep going. This is so exquisite what happens here.
To that investigation, because I was at the Jesuit National Headquarters. I was their general counsel in their social ministry office, which was their public policy office.
So can I just take you then very quickly to what happened? I'm going to tell this in a rough, quick form. As I understood it, you insisted on being given access to the hitherto unreleased, secret, unreleased Project Blue Book files. And incredibly, they agreed to do that. You were given access because this was a presidential fiat. And as a result of that, and I took great pleasure the other day, I was walking back from a bar near Congress, and I stood at the Madison building, the very same building where you were given entry before it was even officially opened. Tell me what happened that day when you went to the Madison building in the National Archives. What happened?
What happened is Marcia Smith had told me that I had to bring 2 forms of official photo ID. So I brought my Washington, D.C. driver's license and I brought my passport. And I came to the building. I was surprised that nobody had even occupied the building yet. It was brand new. It had just gotten built. And there were these 2 suits standing outside of the door waiting for me. They demanded to see both forms of my identification, and I showed them both. And then they showed me in. So I went into the hallway, and they said, go down the hallway to the right, and you'll see an elevator there on the left. And you go down into the basement. And you'll see the place to go. So I went in, I got in the elevator, and I went down. And as I was going down the elevator, I just on instinct, I just opened up my briefcase and took out a yellow pad and slipped it under my arm, and then closed my briefcase. The elevator arrived in the basement. I got out, and it was dark down there. There weren't lights on, but I could see down the hall. I could see a light coming out of a room, and there were these two other suits. These guys.
This is amazing, isn't it? Brand new building. This is where all of the super top secret stuff resides. And he's allowed in. He goes down into the basement, and there's nobody there. The lights aren't even on. And there's only two people watching the entire place. I mean, you know, this is the stuff of a Tom Clancy novel, isn't it? This is what is so fascinating about this. The whole UAP thing, the more we hear about it, the more fascinating it gets, the more mysterious it gets. The ultimate mystery, the mystery of reality, is why we all keep coming back to this. Even in our dire frustrations, we want to know, damn it. That's how this works. That's why we keep pushing. That's why sometimes we keep repeating the stories. That's why sometimes, such as I am doing here tonight, we keep re-looking at the past interviews, because we may get some piece of information that we missed before. Nothing is not worth getting. We get it all and digest it. That's the idea here. So anyway, stranger than truth is stranger than fiction. The truth is stranger than fiction. And this really gets fascinating. Now, notice how Sheehan does the typical lawyer thing. I love how he plays the typical lawyer in this event. Very, very cool.
Nice. Big, kind of husky-looking guys that were there. So I go down the hallway. They both of them demanded to see my two forms of identification. It was sort of like they resented my even being there. But I showed them, and they said, "Look, leave that briefcase here. You can't take any notes. You can't record anything. But here the stuff is. They brought the stuff for you." And so I put the briefcase down. Yes.
So I just want to set the scene for this. This is you, Daniel Sheehan, being given access to the darkest, deepest secrets in the American military-industrial complex. You've asked for and been given access to the UFO files, the secret files of Project Blue Book, the files the government denies exists. What did you find?
Well, what I did is I walked in, and I was in this a comparatively small room. It was about maybe 20 feet wide and about 12 feet or so deep. And there were these three big cardboard fold-out tables. And they had like shoeboxes, these little light green, kind of government green shoeboxes with the little ties on them. And there was a microfiche machine that was there. And so I sat down and I took the yellow pad out and I slid it over behind one of the boxes so that if they looked in, they wouldn't see it. And I opened up the first box and they had these little film canisters of microfiche film. So I took the first one out and I put it into this old timey microfiche machine and started cranking it and looking at it. It was all these documents. And I said, I don't know how long they're going to allow me to stay in here. And so I said, if I start reading each one of these documents as a lawyer, it's going to take forever. So I sort of cranked through them.
Now, I want you to appreciate one thing. Now, I'm always complaining that the technology is changing too fast. Okay, I get all that. The technology is changing too fast. They keep updating computers. It's a conspiracy to steal more money out of all of us worldwide. They could maximize their computers, but they don't. They keep coming up with stuff. Same with this, though, but in this instance, technology now is a terrific blessing that we ought to be grateful for. You guys are communicating with each other in this chat right now around the world, instantly right now as you type. That's incredible. The computer, the ability to move past microfiche We need to be thankful for that. We do live in a terrific age. There's no question about that. So let's keep this going. If we get flat, if we cease caring, if we end up psychologically feeling defeated and there's nothing we can do about it, then they've got us. But with our technology, our capability, look how we're communicating tonight, right now, right here. All 500 of you. That's impressive. We can do the impossible. See, that's the view of what's his nose, the other ufologist. Let's keep going.
To see if there were any photographs anywhere. Nothing was there in the first canister. And so I folded it all up and put it back in. And I opened up a second canister, went through it, and they had a lot of documents again. I could see all the official stamps on them and the top secret designations, et cetera. And then I got to the third canister, I think it was, and partway in, there it was. Here was this series of photographs, black and white photographs of a crashed flying saucer. There wasn't any doubt about what it was. It was a winter scene. There was snow on the ground, and the saucer, it was a classic large disc saucer, about 40, 50 feet across.
So this is the information at Roswell in Project Blue Book that we were told forever that didn't exist. It was a lie. Danny Sheehan, as a lawyer, is now in the actual top secret part of the Blue Book. And there are photos of crashed flying saucers. That isn't our technology. Back then, we hadn't had a chance to survey the wreckage, try to imitate the wreckage, and come up with a rebuild. This is at the very beginning of Roswell, and there were crashed UFOs that are photographed. That is what makes this interview so fascinating. And this man is a direct eyewitness of that. Now, I'm just saying, that's pretty fascinating. But listen to what he does with this. This is kind of humorous in a way. In fact, it's hilarious.
With a big dome on the top of it. It had hit into this snow-covered field, and it plowed this big ditch all the way across the field. Like the earth was all turned up, and it was stuck into the side of this big snow-covered embankment, stuck in there like at a 45-degree angle, just stuck in the side of the hill. And I could see all around it, there were these Air Force personnel. They were in winter jackets, with the big fur around the hood, and they were taking photographs of it. And I actually saw one of the guys in one of the photos. There were like three of them that I saw the photos, and they had one of these old-timey cameras, a movie camera, like with the two big round canisters on the top of them. So it must have been like in like the late 40s or early 50s or something, I figured. And so that and then all of a sudden I realized that in one of the photos I could see around the bottom of the dome of the crash saucer that was stuck in the embankment, these symbols. And I looked at them and I said, wow, look at there's nothing like anything I've ever seen. They're not Russian. They're not Chinese. They're not, hieroglyphics. They're totally unique. So I said, okay, I'm going to trace these because I want to make sure they're absolutely identical to what is there and that they're in the exact sequence that they're in. And so I did is I took out the yellow.
These are top secret files, Danny. Isn't that an act of espionage?
Yeah. Now, he does show this. He doesn't show the hieroglyphics or the photo has been shown on other YouTube channels. I didn't get a chance. I have to confess I did a bad. I watched the Chris Bledsoe interview with Danny Jones this afternoon, and I probably could have tracked down that photograph that he traced. So it's been lost. He has described that photograph to others. It is on YouTube. You can Google Danny Sheehan drawing of UFO, and something will come up on YouTube and they'll show you what he saw. And he agreed with the final drawing. He helped those artists draw what he had traced. So, I mean, yeah, I know, I get it. I would much rather have the photograph also. But Sheehan is as credible as Ross Coulthart is. He's not going to be making this up just for notoriety. He's already world famous, and he's already got enough money to retire after he turned 15 years old. So I believe everything he's saying. It's just so fascinating how this came about. So let's keep listening. I know there's skeptics. I get that. It's okay. Tonight is not a skeptics night. Tonight is a night of here's some of the.
No, I'd been cleared to see them. And so what I did is I took out the yellow pad, and interestingly enough, it's just one of those instinctive things. I opened up the yellow pad to the inside cardboard backing. And what I did is I pushed the backing underneath the microfiche machine, and then focused the microfiche right onto the inside cover of the yellow pad, so that I traced them identically, absolutely, totally accurately, every single one of them. And there must have been about 8 or 10 of them that were all obvious. And so I traced them in detail, and I got them all done. I kept looking up to see if anybody was watching. And so I got all done, and I closed the yellow pad, and I said, "That's it. I got it. You know, that's a UFO, man. And look, it's got all these unique symbols on them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the stuff away. I put the little microfiche away, put it back in the box, took the yellow pad, stood up, and put it under my arm. You know, I have my suit on, and I didn't put it inside my suit to try to hide."
Okay, I've got to tell you right now, I can see in the comments, no, these were not reformed Egyptian hieroglyphics from the Book of Mormon. They really weren't. He does have pictures of these hieroglyphics. He's actually shown this in several different videos. Someday I would like to get Sheehan on my show. He is just so blessed busy, and he's got important work. Quite frankly, he's got more important things to do than be on my show for right now. And I can respect that. The good he's doing is much larger than wasting time on my show at this point. So someday I will get him here. But yeah, Conan the Barbarian or Conan the Librarian, you're wrong. It's not reformed Egyptian hieroglyphics. But that was hilarious. I had to say something. So, all right, let's keep going. Now, I love how Coulthart brings up a very important issue here.
I just stuck it under my arm, and I turned around and got up and walked out. I walked right straight out the door, and the two guys were kind of surprised. And I'm surprised and I think about it that I left as soon as I did, but I had the information, and I said, I don't want to take any chances at all. So I left. I went out the door, and I reached down and picked up my briefcase that was sitting there by the side, and I started walking down the hall. And all of a sudden, one of the guys said, "Hold it. Hey, hold it." And I stopped, and he said, "What is that you got there?" And I said, "Oh, that's my briefcase. I just picked my briefcase up," which was there. He said, No, under your arm. What's under your arm there? Both of them came over to me and kind of loomed over me. And one of them reached over and yanked the yellow pad away from me, and then ruffled through all the yellow pages. And there was nothing on them, of course. And then he kind of grumpily handed it back to me. And so I put it back under my arm. And just turned around, picked up my briefcase, and started walking down the hall. I hope I wasn't whistling, to try to get. But I went down the hallway and got into the elevator. When I got in the elevator, I opened up my briefcase and put the yellow pad in. Got up and went up the stairs, turned around and walked right straight out the door, and went back to Jesuit headquarters.
So that.
All right, now that's quite a story. That is quite the event. Here's where Coulthart shines. This is what I love about Coulthart. If you aren't watching him regularly, you're missing out, honestly. Not only does he ask the straightforward questions, but he has so many interesting guests. He's got 35, 40 years of journalism under his belt. He's well known, but he's followed the UAP, UFO community long enough to know who the big players are. He has them, and he does ask really good questions, but when there is a point to make, he will make it. I love how he makes this point that he's about to bring up crystal clear. Not once, not twice, not 3 times. He makes sure, as a journalist on this astonishing issue of there really are real photographs of UAPs in existence, and they were at Roswell, he makes sure that Danny Sheehan leaves no wiggle room in his language. He pins him down. I have to emphasize that because this is the stuff legends are made of. Let's watch this. This is a masterclass of journalism for you budding journalists.
That is 1976 when that happened?
77. That was the spring of 77.
77.
This all happened. He got elected in November 76. On November 19th is when he confronted Bush and was refused the information. This was like early spring of 1977.
So 44 years ago, you got to see what you believe is categorical evidence of a crash retrieval of a non-human craft.
Well, I knew that these symbols were not from anything I'd ever seen on the planet, and I had a fairly extensive history. But as I say, I knew they weren't Chinese, they weren't Russian, they weren't Hindu, they weren't anything that I'd ever seen. I'd seen a significant amount of things. I studied foreign policy at Harvard College under Henry Kissinger. I studied theology and stuff at the Harvard Divinity School. I'd studied different legal texts. I was, in fact, the legal research assistant for Professor Jerome Cohen, who was the head of the International Law Department at Harvard. So I'd done lots of investigation about Chinese history and Chinese law. Nothing. These symbols were like nothing that I'd ever seen anywhere on Earth.
Now, you're very sure it was US Air Force personnel in what presumably sounded like 1940s uniforms standing around what appeared to be a retrieved flying saucer.
Yes, that's right. Because I recognized the winter garb because I was going to go to the Air Force Academy. So I was pretty familiar with Air Force garb, et cetera. I said, these are Air Force guys. And these are official Air Force guys, taking photographs and movie footage of this thing. And I knew it immediately when I saw it.
But what's important about this, Danny, is that is, if I'm not mistaken, that is first-hand direct witness evidence from you of a UAP, a flying saucer, a non-human craft.
Well, it was exactly as I said. That I was. There's no doubt that it was a flying saucer.
Okay, I really have to. This is the cream of the crop right here. I just want you to observe the back and forth with how the professional journalist gets the professional lawyer to speak clearly, plainly, unambiguously. This is eyewitness testimony, folks. For where we're at, for the type of subject that we're all so interested in. I mean, gosh damn it, we want this to be real. We really love this mystery. It is so intriguing, but we have to be clear. We need something solid. Watch this interaction. This is second to none, in my opinion. Fabulous stuff. Absolutely superb.
That was absolutely clear. And there wasn't any doubt that it was crashed. And it wasn't any doubt that there were no symbols of anything on Earth that were on it. That much I know.
Why do you think? Why do you think they gave you access? I mean, it's quite extraordinary. I mean, I can't think of any other time in history when anyone from outside of the legacy program has been given access to data, to evidence of the existence of such a program.
I was surprised. So was Marshall. Well, so was Dr. Marshall Smith. When I asked her, she said, "What kind of information would you like to see?" And I said, I knew immediately. I said, I want to see the classified portions of Project Blue Book. I know that there's over 700 sightings that they were unable totally to rationalize away, and they had rationalized away a lot of sightings that wasn't legitimate. But these 700 of them, they were obviously things that were so highly credible and had so many credible eyewitnesses that there was nothing they could do. So they just logged them in as unable to be identified. And so those were the ones I wanted. And those are the ones that she said, oh, they'll never give you that. They'll never give you that. I said, well, look, if we don't ask, we'll never get them.
Okay, here's another quick little mini lesson in the middle of this as well. And he probably did recognize he's asking for the miracle. He's asking to see the golden plates of the Book of Mormon here is what he's asking for. To give you a context for you, my Mormon part of my audience, Joseph Smith never let anyone see the gold plates. He always kept them covered or hidden, and it was through faith, except for some special witnesses, right? But to ask for the top secret stuff is just not going to happen. Notice Sheehan's response. Well, I certainly won't see them if I don't ask. Okay, the mini lesson for us tonight here, all 610 of us, is they're never going to give us disclosure unless we keep pressing. If you give up and quit, then of course they can run amok and do anything they want, and they won't give a damn about government by the people, of the people, for the people, and they will trample our Constitution. That is not acceptable, right? So we, the people, we insist on putting our big boy and big girl pants on, and we keep pushing them on this. We keep demanding answers. We want more. We want totality, right? Okay, this is why we enjoy this, right? That's why we enjoy doing this. So let's keep on going. We're making great headway.
So please ask them. She said, well, all right, I'll ask them.
Now, listen, I've just got this naive idea that the President of the United States is the commander-in-chief. So when he says jump, people jump. I would have thought if President Jimmy Carter ordered the CIA director, even if it was George Herbert Walker Bush, to give information on the UAP issue, I would have thought that he would have jumped to attention and said, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, and given him all the detail he needs. Am I being very naive here?
Well, I won't comment on whether you're being naive, but I will say this, is that's exactly what I was told had happened. And other presidents have indicated the same thing. And when John Kennedy, I know, when I was investigating, I was in F. Lee Bailey's law firm when we were representing James McCord, the former CIA wiretapping specialist in the Watergate burglary. And I was tasked at the office to find out what the guys were doing in the Watergate hotel. What were they doing there? And when I conducted that investigation, one of the things I discovered is that on June 5th of 1963, President Kennedy was actually engaged in the exchange of secret letters with Khrushchev after the Cuban Missile Crisis of October of 1962. And they were actually planning to, both of them, take steps to disassemble the nuclear warheads of their respective nuclear arsenals. And one of the things that President Kennedy wanted to do is he wanted to demonstrate to Khrushchev his good faith, and he wanted to have a combined space program with Russia. So he demanded, Kennedy on June 5th, demanded that he be given copies of all the UFO files. And they realized that he was going to give them to Khrushchev. And so they refused to give them to him. So that's these two specific instances. And in professional investigative capacities that I had, that I was given direct information.
That is absolutely amazing. It's pretty sombering. It's sobering to realize that even if our vote does count, maybe our president doesn't have the power we've always been taught he has. And I get it. There's going to be a lot of you saying, yeah, welcome to reality, you naive little boob. Yeah, I get it. But if we can't try to match the ideology, if we, the people, let that get off the rails, and it goes off the rails so bad that we become enslaved, it's best to head off our malaise. This is the boiling frog syndrome. Why let that happen to ourselves when it only takes a few minutes to write a letter to our senators and House representatives, etc., to maintain our freedoms? That's what I want. That's what I'm hoping to encourage others to get involved. We've all sat back. I'm pointing to me here. I'm not just castigating blame outside. I'm looking at me too. I'm guilty of this. I need to change it. We all can't just sit back and watch TV for the rest of our lives and do nothing and expect to remain free. Freedom is not free. It is earned. We really need to regroup that into our minds and hearts and fight for it, in my opinion. There's no reason to let the government fall apart through laziness. And I'm not accusing anyone of laziness either. That's not my point. So let's keep going. We're on a roll here.
About that.
So could I ask this? You were briefed eventually about the report that went to President Carter. Was President Carter given any detail about what you had discovered in the National Archives building that day when you were given access to the classified portion of the Project Blue Book files?
Well, actually, that's one of the peculiar facts about all this, Ross, is that what happened is I was so thunderstruck by what I saw. What I did is I took it back to Jesuit headquarters, and I gave it to Father William J. Davis, who was my Jesuit superior. I was a candidate for the Jesuit priesthood at the time. I showed him what I had, and he just reached down and slid open the drawer of his desk and handed me this little 8.5 by 11 manila clasped envelope. And I opened it up and slid out an 8.5 by 11 black and white glossy photograph of a UFO in flight. There wasn't any doubt about what it was. And I said to Father Davis, I said, "Where did you get this?" And he said, "My sister Dodie gave it to me." I said, "Well, where did Dodie get it?" He says, "Well, Mike, her husband, gave it to her. He is the head air traffic controller at the Seattle airport. And his best friend, who's a pilot, commercial pilot, who flies freight all around the Northwest, took this photograph out of his airplane window. And he didn't want to get in trouble and lose his pilot license. So he took it to his best friend, Mike, and gave him the copy. He said, "There, okay, I performed my duty. Now you have it." And Mike didn't want to get in trouble. So he took the photograph and gave it to his wife, Dodie, and said, "Here, bring this to your brother. He's a priest." So that's how I got it.
Ha, ha. Fascinating. But notice, because of the culture of shame, you know, people say, well, where are the photographs? They're in existence, or at least they used to be. But it was because of the government culture of shame that prevented so many pilots from presenting that. I mean, we didn't get any really good actual radar photographs and videos until Fravor in 2004, and it still took almost over 10, 15 more years later before he could show those. Lou Elizondo, apparently, if you believe his view, got them declassified, and then they came out into the world. I saw the first exposure of that on the Joe Rogan show quite a few years back. Now, time's going fast, man. It's mind-boggling. But so the evidence is there. It's just not here. And I get it. That's maddening. Damn it. I get it. That's maddening. I'm not getting any younger either. But we got to keep pushing. We got to keep working at this. We have to keep whittling away. Michelangelo did not carve and perfect his statue of David in just 2 months, right? Bad analogy, because I know we've been at this bullshit for 80 years. Come on. I am so with you on your side there. But in the meantime, this is why we find this mystery tantalizing and worth pursuing still. That's my point. So let's keep going. Good journalism coming up here, man. Watch how Coulthart handles this. I love this. This is superb stuff.
So, but what happened with President Jimmy Carter? Did he get told about what you'd found in the archives?
You know, it's one of those bizarre facts about history is that I don't believe he did. As strange as that sounds, and I imagine Marcia Smith is upset at me for it, because I didn't stay in there long enough to get a lot of other evidence, which I should have, and I just gave it to Father Davis, and then we moved directly to try to get the National Council of Churches to set up a task force to investigate UFOs and to figure out what the theological implications were, and that's what happened.
So it's your belief that even the president wasn't told about what you discovered, that the report withheld that information, that direct first-hand evidence of what you'd seen in those documents in the Madison building in the National Archives?
Yeah, the two reports that were ultimately issued by the Congressional Research Service to the president, which I saw, were simply abstract things about, here are the statistical probabilities, there's this many planets and this many star systems, and here's Drake's equation. And it was just this really strange, soft kind of thing. But it did conclude, based upon their probability projections, that there were at least from 2 to 6 other highly intelligent, highly technologically developed, but distinctly non-human species in our galaxy. And they said that in the official report to the president, because I saw that.
Wow. Now, I'm fascinated. I want to know, did you, when the opportunity came with the creation of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, did you go to Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick at...
Okay, this is really critically interesting information on Sean Kirkpatrick, because he has just recently put himself in the news again, and a lot of us are quite suspicious. He has now come out and discussed the retrieval program. That's what my earlier video today was on. So this is interesting, how long he's been involved in this. And he's part of the problem now. Fascinating how the ins and outs, the comings and goings, the gives and takes works with this.
At the ARROW, the Pentagon's UFO investigation office, as a first-hand direct witness, did you provide that information to ARROW of what you'd seen?
I did. I absolutely did. I was talking with Chris Mellon about this, and Chris said, look, he's going to contact Sean Kirkpatrick directly and take the position that Sean needs to interview me. And so I got contacted by Dr. Fitzpatrick and asked to go.
Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick said as recently as last Friday in the report that was written to Congress that no direct first-hand evidence with knowledge of a retrieval program was provided to ARROW. What he says in that document, under oath presumably to Congress or under some prescription about telling the truth, what he says to Congress is the complete opposite of what you're telling me now here today.
That's true. That's true. No, he was told personally, because he's the one that conducted the interview of me. And I gave him all the exact same.
I don't want to drag you into a defamation case, Danny, but this is a very, very important point. There are obligations on officers of the state, people acting under congressional rule legislation. Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick was operating according to law, tasked by statute of Congress to prepare a truthful and accurate report. Now, I'm asking you, did Dr. Kirkpatrick lie when he gave you, did Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick lie when he made the assertion that there was no direct first-hand witness evidence provided to Arrow of a crash retrieval?
I provided him under oath the exact same information that I've given to you.
All right. This is spectacular because this is evidence that we have a problem, Houston. Now watch how Coulthart makes sure this is absolutely crystal clear in case any of this ever goes to court. And it very well could. That's what's so astonishing about Ross Coulthart's interview here. This is fantastic journalism. Very impressive stuff of Coulthart here. Watch this.
And the question is whether he was taking some weird position that, well, that was a photograph and it wasn't on site. But I didn't lay my hands on the craft. You know, and I could tell from the way the report was written, it was kind of wiggle language of trying to pretend that somehow they had no direct evidence. But from a court of law, as a 50-year practicing attorney from Harvard Law School, I can tell you that is direct admissible firsthand testimony.
There you have it. In a court of law, what Danny Sheehan shared with Sean Kirkpatrick about the UFOs is admissible testimony in court. There's your evidence for legally stating we're believing in UAPs because we've got the evidence. Now, I get it. The UAPs aren't landing on our front yards, but what makes you think you're so damn important that they want to pay attention to you? You see, we kind of have this human arrogance. Well, they should be here talking to us and spoon-feeding us with their laser gun technology so I can go hunt my deer easier. Well, what makes you think you're that special? How do you know they're here for us? You see. So this gets tricky. This gets iffy. And I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm just saying there are so many angles here to this that need to be explored that we can't do it all in one show. But a little bit of humility goes a long way in this particular subject. So, yeah, let's keep going. Just about done with this.
About the fact that there is direct visual photographic evidence of a crash retrieval program directly being undertaken by government officials, and he knows that it existed.
So, sir, I need to get an express statement from you. Yeah. What is your position about the truthfulness of Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick in the evidence he gave last week to Congress?
I think that it was a transparent, willful, conscious lie. Just like Project Blue Book was. Absolutely. And I know that.
So
too.
You're accusing an officer of the government. You're accusing somebody who's been statutorily tasked by Congress to prepare a report. You're saying that that particular official, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, lied categorically to the Congress.
Yes, he did.
Wow. I mean, that's a very, very grave allegation. You'd be prepared to testify about that to Congress and to a court? Sure.
No, absolutely. And then he would have to try to argue whether he said, what his explanation was, as to why that wasn't, sustainable proof of what was in the photographs.
Danny, you and I both know about an executive order, EO 12333.
That's pretty potent. That is as straightforward as you can get, man. Danny Sheehan he's slamming the football down after making the touchdown on this one. So there is evidence for a crash retrieval program. Why would they even have to have that if there were no crashes to work on? That's what doesn't make sense. So I agree entirely. Yes, but BYP, that is indirect evidence. Maybe, maybe not. But it is evidence. Not as strong as any of us would like, but it's not nothing. That's the point. We have an eyewitness. I'm just saying, this is really fascinating. Let's keep watching for a few more minutes.
What is the relevance of this executive order made by President Reagan during his administration? What is the significance of that executive order in relation to the obligations that are imposed on members of the intelligence community? And can I also note for the record, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick is, at the time that he was doing that investigation, an officer of the intelligence community, clearly covered by that executive order.
Yes, the executive order 12333 explicitly prohibits anybody in the intelligence community from engaging in any kind of a covert program to try to influence the political opinion of the American citizenry. That they're prohibited from engaging in things like that there was a thing called public diplomacy, which ironically enough was undertaken during the Reagan-Bush administration. They had a whole program called public diplomacy where they were lying about Iran-Contra and denying that they were providing any weapons to them. And I knew that that was a lie. And so I undertook the professional investigation and presented all the evidence to Congress and got a special select committee put together to present the evidence to, and generated huge congressional public hearings about it. The same thing needs to be done here. This is a lie about them insisting that they don't have any such information. For them to just turn around as they did in the report, Dr. Fitzpatrick or Kirkpatrick, and just say, oh, he doesn't happen to believe any of these witnesses that are firsthand witnesses because somehow they've been duped, by the UFO community. That's a ridiculous position to take, and it's propaganda. It is exactly what, Executive Order 12333 is designed to prohibit.
So this is why it is important for us to keep pushing and to keep involved, is because there are laws that have been put into place that give us power, that gives Congress power. And at this point, it appears like Congress has no power, or that it's now it's in a weakened state, etc. It might be, but that's not a reason to give up on our government. That's all the more reason to dig in and say, look, we may be behind in this game by one touchdown, and it's the third quarter. But what football team worth its salt quits playing during the fourth quarter? Right? That's what I'm trying to get across to you. We are in a better position than we think we are if we continue moving forward, pushing, making insistence on our government, etc. That's what I'm trying to advocate for. So let's keep going. There is much more interesting materials here.
They're in violation of that.
Is it an enforceable? Is it something that could be taken to court and tested and enforced?
That's one of the interesting things. I've had a set of discussions with a number of law school professors and legal experts on this. One of the things that we're talking about trying to do is put more enforcement language into the UAP Disclosure Act that was passed back in December, because they intentionally, the House members, the Senate, Michael Turner, the head of the House Intelligence Committee, insisted he and the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, were going to refuse to allow the bill to be put on the floor unless the enforcement provisions were taken out. And that's what happened. So that one of the challenges here is that it's difficult to enforce those things. Just like with the Boland Amendment in 1984, Congress passed a law totally prohibiting the Reagan-Bush administration and the Defense Department and the CIA from giving any aid, direct or indirect, to the Contras, because they've been declared by the International Court of Justice to be international outlaws. And the CIA went right ahead and defied it.
So that's the issue. We've got to get power back to Congress. We, the people, can help by pushing. I see comments in the comment section that the people are powerless. I don't believe that bullshit. Let's keep going.
And kept right on going. He said, yeah, what are you going to do? And so what we did is filed a Federal Criminal Racketeering Act complaint against them, and went to William Webster, the head of the FBI. I got Ross Perot, who was on President Reagan's National Security Advisory Team, to bring the complaint directly to Bill Webster. And Bill Webster began investigating it officially. That's how the Iran-Contra scandal broke out. The same kind of thing happened when I was involved in the Watergate investigation with F. Lee Bailey's firm. We demanded that the Congress set up a special select committee to investigate it.
Now, you've made a public statement now accusing Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick of lying. Has he responded?
Not yet. No.
What would you like to see done with this? I mean, frankly, one of the things that shocks me as somebody who is trained in the law with no legal background like yours, but the thing that shocks me about the military and intelligence community in America is how often these egregious breaches of things like this executive order 12333 just happen and get ignored. Isn't this going to be another case where this executive order banning covert action against the American public is just willfully ignored by the intelligence community?
Yes, unless Congress convenes hearings on this and remedies this with particular pieces of legislation and puts in criminal sanctions for these types of violations. That's why we've organized the New Paradigm Institute, and we're organizing Citizens for Disclosure, trying to set up an action team in every single one of the 435 congressional districts to write to their congresspeople and senators and get them to hold public hearings to know what needs to be remedied.
There's the key. If you believe the people are powerless, if you believe Congress is powerless, etc., and you've given up, then stop bitching. The rest of us, we have groups we can join. Citizens for Disclosure, the other group Sheehan's talking about, the New Paradigm Institute. People are taking action, and millions are beginning to follow that. That's what we're advocating. We need to quit complaining and start taking action. That would be my proposal for potentially helping solve the issues that we have facing us, because the people, have allowed things to go off the rails. We're electing the wrong people into power. So we can do something about that. Yes, it's going to take more than just one election, folks. Don't think I'm that damn naive. A battleship, an aircraft carrier, you don't just turn the steering wheel and it takes a 90-degree turn. No, we know that. It takes time and increments. But we've got to turn the ship. Don't stand there with our thumbs up our butts complaining that, well, we're powerless. There's nothing we can do. Yes, there is something we can do. I will advocate right now. Start looking up Danny Sheehan. That man is putting together organizations of people who can begin to make a difference. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're advocating. Come and join us. if you like this subject, if you like having your freedoms, if you enjoy the freedom of speech, etc., why are we letting this get worse and worse and worse? Who told us we are powerless? If you buy into that bullshit, then you are powerless. I refuse to submit. I will not submit. I say, let's go fight. Let's go kick some ass. That's my attitude. So let's keep going.
So let's there be no mistake about this. You see what happened last week with the report that was presented to Congress as a fraud. You think that the public are being lied to, and you have direct first-hand witness evidence that you're prepared to testify about to Congress, which proves that lie.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm perfectly willing to testify to Congress about the first-hand direct photographic evidence that I saw of the crash retrieval of a UFO, which I'm convinced, because of the symbols on it, we're not part of any nation state on our planet, and that I told this under oath directly to Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick as an official AARO investigative hearing, which we pushed on him and got him to take the testimony, and I gave it directly to him. All they had to do was just go check the records.
Now, to your knowledge, were any inquiries made by AARO as a result of your evidence to Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick? What was his reaction when you gave him the evidence?
He asked me if I could provide to him a copy of the tracings that I had done, and I had said that I didn't have those anymore. You know, that I brought them to Jesuit headquarters. They were in the files of the Jesuit headquarters. And that as far as I knew, that those files, I brought some files with me out to California when I came out here to teach at the University of California, Santa Barbara. And I don't know whether that particular yellow pad was in those Jesuit files or not, but it's that they aren't there.
But he could at least have called as a witness Marcia Smith, who still works, as I understand it, in a private defence institute. She could have been asked and deposed as a witness to see whether or not she was prepared to give evidence to corroborate your claim.
Sure, and of course they could demand to see the records that showed that the Project Blue Book files were brought to Washington, D.C., and 4 different security people were assigned to guard them. You know, and they were brought to the Madison building, and right there in the spring of 1977, there has to be clear records of that.
So we don't have the drawing, which really sucks, but there are ways to corroborate that he could have seen that. On the other hand, can they possibly get all of the records from the Project Blue Books if it is subpoenaed? Unless, of course, they've already destroyed all that. We just don't know at this point. So let's keep going. He's just about finished, and then we'll wrap up here.
And look, forgive me for having to challenge you on this, but this isn't some BS story on your part. You're actually saying this happened. You were given access, quite extraordinarily, to direct evidence that the United States government is aware of retrieved, potentially non-human craft, flying saucers.
That's right. That is exactly.
I scratch my head as I think about this, because it's quite extraordinary. And I remember when I was writing my book, I was actually blown away by the fact that you'd had this experience. Because as far as I can see, it's unprecedented. Nobody's ever been given access to those secret files before. And as we learned with last week's historical review to Congress, the existence of such files is now categorically denied by AARO to the Congress. You're saying they're lying.
Well, and I interviewed Albert Stein, a man who worked directly for Project Blue Book, on his deathbed, and he gave me great details about the program. and how they had a whole special unit set up that had to look into these 700 cases that they knew perfectly well. They couldn't explain away. And he was directly involved in keeping all the records of that. He called me on his deathbed and asked me to fly to see him up in northern Michigan or Minnesota. I've got my records. And he confessed on his deathbed about the program going on, and that he actually was taken to S4 and saw one of the craft and told him about it.
So, oh, wow, this is interesting. I've never heard this before. So you're saying that you were provided with direct witness evidence of the existence of a facility known as S4 at Groom Lake, Area 51.
That's right, from Albert Stein, who was a guy that worked in Project Blue Book for many years on his deathbed.
Wow. You know, it's funny, Danny. I mean, like you, both of us are talking to people in the legacy reverse engineering and crash retrieval program.
It's fascinating how this is just so elusive in some remarks, in some respects, and yet it is so angering, because we're still not satisfied with the level of evidence, and that is how it should be. I'm not advocating that we sit back and say, all right, there's enough here, we're good. We're not good. There's not enough here. Again, why we need to keep pushing. And that's what we're doing, is we're keeping pushing. And it's great that the discussion is involving all angles. Skeptics, believers, those on the fence, those in government, those in military, those on social media, etc. This is the idea. Democracy is a discussion. That's why we present this information and material, because we want this discussion. Yeah, this is fantastic. I love that there are so many of you in the chat discussing. That's fabulous. This is what we're hoping for. Now we need to get us to start talking to our government leaders. All right, one more just small item here.
The program that the Pentagon denies exists. I guess I feel a sense of futility that when you've got direct first-hand witness evidence like yours, and it's blatantly, willfully ignored by Arrow's investigation and egregiously misrepresented to Congress, what hope is there? I mean, they're just blatantly lying to the executive arm of government.
Yes, and to the congressional branch. That's exactly what they're doing. That is a profound problem of the national security state, Ross. The whole national security state apparatus that was set up by the National Security Act in 1947 over the course of the past 80 years has basically garnered unto itself the authority to lie to Congress, to lie to the president, to lie to the American people, to undertake full-scale propaganda campaigns, to lie to the people of the country. And they got caught doing it. They got caught doing it in the Pentagon Papers. They got caught doing it in Watergate. They got caught doing it in Iran-Contra. And the fact is, there were one set of hearings, the Senator Frank Church Select Committee on Intelligence Abuse hearings, where they exposed a lot of that. And they set up the intelligence committees to try to rein this in. And the fact of the matter is that the intelligence committees are not doing their job. They need to hold public hearings and have the public testimony presented so the American people know what's happening here.
Yep. So no one's hiding their head in the sand. We've got issues. We've got problems. We've got to solve them. We need to be involved because it does affect us. So we have the right to be involved. So let's be involved. That's what I'm advocating. Yes, and it is our freedoms to criticize, and it is our freedoms to try to solve problems as well. I absolutely agree. Criticism must occur, but so does problem solving. Not by burying our heads in the sand and imagining we don't have power, but by taking the power and taking an action. And it's not like it has to be a bold, big, magnificent action. Letters to our congressmen can be effective if it's done by hundreds of millions. And then if they ignore us, then vote the bastards out. Right? That's, we've got to convince our government to get rid of the Electoral College. We're not going to do that by saying, well, we don't have the power. Well, in that case, I hope you enjoy slavery. I say we do have the power, and if we don't, we make it back into our hands because that's how it was set up. If we let that slip, whose fault is that? I know I'm getting preachy and all that jazz. I'm not trying to. I just care about our Constitution. I love my freedoms. I love my freedoms enough to do something about them, not just say, well, we're powerless. Bullshit. We're not powerless. We're not. I don't buy that. I will never buy that. You'll never convince me we're powerless. No, I just don't believe it. We're powerless if all 350 million of us give up. And what kind of asinine response would that be? In that case, we deserve the slavery. But we don't deserve the slavery. We've got more than just ourselves to think about and fight for. We've got our children and our grandchildren and our brothers and our sisters and our friends and our neighbors and our fellow country citizens and the world. So, yes, it's hard to broaden our vision to begin to believe that, well, maybe there is something I can do. It doesn't have to be big, bold, and magnificent. There is something you can do. I challenge you to do something somewhere along the line to improve the country. That's a start. It doesn't have to be life-shaking. It doesn't have to take 7 weeks of your time to do or get done either. So anyway, let's keep on trucking.
In that they need to take further steps to enforce their rules and regulations. I just had a conversation with the president, incoming president of the University of Washington Law School. And she said, the way this thing is presently operating, it's just a question of who's got more power, whether the national security state has more power than the constitutional government of our country. That's the situation that we're faced with here. And that's what's being surfaced here in this UFO issue.
That's why the issue is important, because we can determine who has the more power, the constitutional government or the military industrial complex. That's the issue. So anyway, if I've offended any of you, I apologize. And if I haven't offended anybody, then probably I haven't done my job correctly. Because I always offend someone no matter what subject I pick up. But I want to thank you all for coming and for having a good evening of an hour and a half with me on seeing one of the most stellar interviews of one of the most stellar witnesses that I've ever seen on YouTube. And it's well worth the watch. Thank you for all your support. Hit the like and subscribe. Go ahead and share this video with everyone else. And we will catch up to you soon. I will see you next week on live. Keep track of my channel because I'm going to have a lot more videos during the course of the week as well. I wish you all well. Have a good night. Be good, do well, have fun, sleep nice, make lots of friends, smile, and remember, believe in yourself. You can and do make a difference. If in nobody else's life, your immediate family's. And if that's not there, then for yourself. I'll catch up to you soon. In the meantime, get out of here.